This is Turd Flinging Monkey for TFM News. I'm going to be responding to an article in a blog by Nicholas Kilsdon Gervais called "Research Find That As a Group Only Men Pay Tax." And this is simply a WordPress blog. I'll provide a link in the description. So Mr. Gervais looked at a 2010 New Zealand report, which showed the tax impact of men and women. And it found that women, whether they work or not, even if they hold down full-time jobs and pay taxes throughout their entire working life, they cost the state about $150,000 at the end of their life. While men contribute to the economic pool and actually don't cost the state money. Now this may be confusing to people, but it makes perfect sense. Because all these different programs go almost entirely to women. And you may think I'm exaggerating, but it's true. I talked about it in a previous video. About 70% of welfare spending goes to women. Meanwhile, about 70% of taxes are paid by men. Now, part of the reason why the taxes are paid by men is because men are the ones earning the money. Now, feminists will say, oh, that's the wage gap. If women were paid more, blah, blah, blah. But even if women were paid more, assuming that they somehow woke up tomorrow and were just as capable as men, and they did the job to the same level as men and all this other stuff, and they got paid equally, same job, same pay. Even if all that happened, you'd still have a few sticking points. Number one, women have children. Men don't have children. This means women drop out of the workforce to raise their children. It's just a fact of life. Now, as I talked about in my video about Japan a while ago, in order to help mothers work so they can contribute economically, you'd have to offer things like taxpayer-provided daycare. So these women are dropping their kids off at a daycare provided by taxpayers so they can go to work and pay taxes. Which on the surface looks like a good deal. The women are paying taxes, great. But the problem is they're also costing taxpayers in order to go to work, because they have these children that have to be supervised. So they drop the kids off at the daycare, it's subsidized by the taxpayer, you have to deduct that from the taxes that they're actually paying. So unless the woman has a very highly paid job, like a doctor or something like that, she's probably not paying more in taxes than she's receiving in benefits. So when women have children, they either drop out of the workforce, or they go on some sort of welfare program like WIC or food stamps, and that costs taxpayers money. Sure, they're working, sure, they're paying taxes, but you have to deduct these benefits that overwhelmingly goes to women. So, and that's just the welfare, the food stamps, all of that's when they're fertile and having children. Now you have to skip ahead to the end of their life. It's very well documented that women outlive men. So things like Social Security, Medicare, all these social programs that go to the elderly overwhelmingly go to women. The men are the ones who worked and paid the taxes, and the women are the ones who get to enjoy the benefits. So at the end of their life, when all is said and done, they worked their 40 years, on and off as they had children, then they retired and went on the government dole for a couple decades or so. At the end of the day, they didn't pay any taxes. Every red cent they sent to the government was given back to them in benefits. Only men pay taxes. And I've made this point before, but it's good to see that the research has been done, even though it's in New Zealand and it's from 2010. It confirms what everybody kind of already understands. When you look at all these welfare programs, they overwhelmingly go to women. You look at even the ones that aren't necessarily earmarked for women, they're utilized overwhelmingly by women. And then you look at retirement programs that are utilized overwhelmingly by women because they outlive men. Now, again, I'm not blaming women. I'm not saying women are evil because they live longer than men and they have children. These are just biological realities. But it's also true that because women live longer than men and because they have children, they are going to use more government services than men. And at the end of the day, they pay no net tax. All the money that government spends is ultimately borne by men. Men are the only ones actually contributing to the system. They're the ones paying more into the system than they're receiving in benefits. They're the ones propping everything up. And it will always be that way as long as women have the babies. It's simply a biological reality. I don't celebrate that. I'm not saying this is the way things should be. Life's not fair. Nature's not fair. But what are you going to do about it? And this is why I get accused of being anti-male or, these people on the left who are socialists who want to advocate for more social programs for men. On the surface, it sounds so noble. Don't you care about men? All these men are suffering. Shouldn't the government do more to help men? I mean, they spend all this money on women. They gotta help men. They gotta help men and the women together. You gotta spend the same. If all the taxes are paid for by men, You're only hurting men to help these men. You're not helping men as a whole. Every dollar the government spends to help people, whether they're men or women, is paid for by men. So if you really cared about men, you wouldn't be trying to get the government to do more, you'd be trying to get the government to do less. So of course I'm going to lose people who are socialist or a little bit on the left side of the economic spectrum because they don't believe in that sort of thing. They think the government should do more. They think the government should spend more people's money, and by people's money they mean men's money. That's just the way it is. And I don't begrudge them for that. I understand that's in their self-interest to do so. That's just how they believe they benefit from the welfare system. So of course they're going to advocate for more of it. I mean, some of these guys, if you really sit down, if you really kind of pin them up against a wall and make them admit it, they want to be treated like women. They see women getting a pass at life because they have vaginas, because they have functioning ovaries, and they want men to be treated that same way. But the sort of pampering and privilege that comes with that is paid for by someone, i.e. men. Who's going to pay for it? Certainly not women. It would have to be other men. So you'd have to break men into groups, and you have to exploit one group to benefit the other group. But it doesn't matter. One group of men is going to suffer. You can't help one group of men without hurting the other group of men. It's simply unavoidable. Someone has to be responsible. I had one person in my comments section that said that, men need to be liberated just like women were. Men shouldn't have to be responsible for society, just like women aren't responsible for society. Nobody should be responsible. Well, if nobody's responsible, you don't have a society. Somebody has to step up and be responsible. And women are never going to do that. And if men don't step up and be responsible, then everything's going to collapse and go to shit. So really the only viable choices are you just going to just let society collapse and go to shit and everybody die? Maybe that's a choice. That's one option, I'll admit. Or we can try to make a fair and balanced system. Not an equal system, but a fair and balanced system, because men are going to be more responsible. Because they're going to have that responsibility thrust upon them due to their Y chromosome and penis. If that's going to be the case regardless, then it would be fair if men were rewarded for that. If they were in charge, if they had power and authority commensurate with their additional responsibility. Because the truth is, a patriarchy is a fair and balanced system. Of course, women hate being under the power and authority of a man, but they never complain when the men take responsibility for them. But that's not fair to the men, to treat women like equals while being responsible for them at the same time. That's bullshit. Now, if we lived in a world where resources were infinite, where everybody could be happy and nobody had to pay for it and we could all be irresponsible, then I would be right there with them. But we don't, so I can't. You can have ideals, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you translate those ideals into some sort of policy. That you waste your time advocating for something that will never happen, or will have disastrous consequences if it ever does happen. I want to help men. I really do. I know you don't believe me, but I really do. But you can't help everyone, and you can't help the men who want to feed on other men, because then you're just screwing other men. In some of my more recent videos where I talked about just, not helping people, letting nature take its course. A lot of people said that, if we didn't give these people welfare, if we didn't give them money to reproduce, they would turn to violence and crime and they'd form mobs and they'd start, they would try to overthrow the government or something like that. Well, then you fucking kill them. Now, of course, I don't advocate killing people just because they're poor or because they belong to some social group or socioeconomic group. But once they turn to violence, yeah, you fucking kill them. You fucking end them. How can I advocate for killing the rioters and the criminals, but having compassion towards poor people and trying to create more opportunity? Well, the simple reason is, most of the poor, if you took away welfare, would get a job. They just need a kick in the ass. They need to have welfare taken away as the path of least resistance. There's probably a job that they could do, but they feel it's beneath them. And because welfare is very generous, they feel no need to get a job. Well, if welfare went away, they would get that job. It wouldn't be a glamorous job, but it would be a job. And they might gain some skills and pull themselves out of poverty. And they would be better off in the long run. Now, if you just rounded up the poor people and gassed them, well, then you're taking away all that potential. Some people just need to hit their rock bottom before they turn their life around. So I don't want to kill poor people just because they're poor. They probably just need help. They need the opportunity to better their lives. And it sounds heartless, but in order to create that opportunity, you have to force them to get off their ass and get a fucking job. As long as they can just sit there on government handouts, they're going to. You're not helping them, you're not pulling them out of poverty, you're just giving them a way to stay in poverty and be comfortable. And you're also helping them reproduce. It's fucking retarded. If you're such a useless piece of shit that when the welfare is taken away, at that point, your path of least resistance, the path you choose from that point on is one of violence and rioting, then you need to be fucking taken out. You just admitted that you have no value to anyone. You're admitting that you're a parasite. And not only a parasite, you're also kind of a terrorist. You're basically saying, give me money, or I'm going to cause all this death and destruction. Pay me off, or I'm going to riot, I'm going to murder people, I'm going to rob people. So you better give me money, or else I'm going to do all these horrible things. Well, no, you don't negotiate with terrorists. You don't give in to their demands, because then they just ask for more. And then more terrorists are formed, and they grow and grow until you just can't pay them off anymore, and then they riot anyway, and now you have a much bigger problem, because you've just allowed them to multiply over the years. So you never negotiate with terrorists. And if somebody is saying that you need to pay these people off or they're going to turn to crime, well then you fucking crack down on them. Not only do you not give them shit, you take the money that they're asking for their welfare benefits and you hire a lot of cops. And when they start rioting, you shoot them in the face. And that's how you deal with their bullshit. And society would be infinitely better off. And the people who advocate for these people, who say that, oh, we should give them money so they don't riot, you were admitting that they are irredeemable pieces of shit, that their only two options in life are to be paid other people's money for the rest of their life and be complete parasites, or to be criminals. Those are their only options in life. Why the fuck do you want them kept alive? Why the fuck do you want them reproducing if they're such irredeemable pieces of shit that their only choices in life are criminal or parasite? Why the fuck are you advocating for them? I don't believe the majority of poor people are either going to be criminals or parasites. I think most poor people are there because of bad choices. Choices which were incentivized by our welfare system. So you take away the incentives. You take away the bullshit welfare, which incentivizes people to make bad decisions. And you let shit work itself out. And when the criminality and the riots happen, you crack down on it. And yeah, people are going to get pissed off and they're going to cry and there's going to be all these tearful pictures in the newspaper. Fuck it. Society will be far better off in the long run. Now, some people ask me, why do I care? What does it have to do with MGTOW? It really doesn't have anything to do with MGTOW. I'm just describing society. When you understand gynocentrism and hypergamy and all this other stuff, you're going to get into the politics of welfare and so forth. They're all related. Human society is interrelated with so many things. Talking about welfare and shit like that, it's not necessarily directly related to MGTOW. And I've never claimed it was. If you want to understand human society, if you want to understand gynocentrism, hypergamy, feminism, all these things are interrelated with the welfare state and with politics. I do apologize if, these sorts of videos don't speak to you. If you just want to hear me talk about, hypergamy and gynocentrism and women and how stupid they are, that's cool. I love those videos. I really do. But, a change of pace is sometimes warranted. Anyway, this is Turd Flinging Monkey signing off.